Welcome everyone to another episode in Wonderland. And we are here speaking with experts, professionals, people with lived experience recovering from trauma, addictions, and all the avoidance strategies we use when we get overwhelmed in the mad modern world. I am very honored and privileged to have the amazing Esteban Romero with us today. Esteban is a colleague, a professional therapeutic colleague, and also a very dear friend who I have met through entrepreneurial initiatives. And I want to say a very warm welcome to you, Esteban. Thank you so much for joining us in Wonderland today.
Thank you, Alice. I feel really honored to be today with you. Thank you for the invitation. I feel really good with you. So it's going to be funny to have this chat now. I think we have this chat before, about healing and, journey, face to face, just as a friend. So now going to be different to do it in an interview, in a podcast.
Absolutely, absolutely, and we'll. I'm really looking forward to sharing your wisdom and your experience with our Wonderland listeners. And I think even before we get into a little bit about your passion and what gets you up in the morning, because I love that beautiful, luscious accent of yours, for our listeners, can you tell them where you're from and a little bit about your background and where you've come from, Esteban?
It's really interesting that people like my accent. Actually, I don't know if I mentioned to you before, but I come from South America, from Chile. So I born in the south of Chile 36 years ago. And yeah, well, my professional background, I'm a dentist. I'm a dental surgeon. So I studied in Chile dentistry for 7 years. And then I moved to Australia in 2016 after survive a mental crisis, emotional crisis. So I had a bit of a breakdown in 2015. Luckily, I was able to realize that and, ask for help, professional help. And then when I get well again, when I get in balance, I realized that if I was continue doing the same, I was going to fall in the same hole. So Esteban picked himself, booked a flight. Everyone thought that I was getting crazy. Like, what are you doing? You're a dentist. You're really good here. Everyone likes you. What's going on with you? But I feel like my inner child or my inner self was saying, you know what, just run away. You need time for yourself. And that's the way how I came to Australia now almost 8 years ago. Wow. So yeah, my accent is South American. And yeah, thank you for that. It's really interesting that people love my accent here because I don't know if, well, you're an English speaker, so I guess it doesn't happen to you, but for us, get value for who we are. It's really good. You feel like comfort.
I love that. And actually, as it happens, I get a lot of comments on my accent because I've got the wandering accent syndrome, born in Canada and a little bit all over the place. So it's, yes. I think that's one of the, the interesting things about being in Australia and being from somewhere else. And you're right. It is, lovely having, people take that interest in you. And Esteban, I love, there's so many reasons why I love you, but I love that you really just, got straight into it, because that's very much my style in terms of talking about your mental health crisis and how that was a breakthrough, for you. So, because I too have a similar philosophy, is that I believe we're living in a world where, there's lots of, shiny images on social media, but, part of what we're passionate about here in Wonderland is telling the real story about what's happening behind the scenes, because I think there's a lot of mental health crisis out there. So I'd like to, maybe, understand that a little bit more in terms of, so you sort of came to this crisis point, and what was, I guess, what was the turning point for you? Like, what was the, in terms of, when you realized, what was it that made you realize that, you needed to change things and turn things around and kind of pivot on your path?
I was thinking about the question, and I feel like It's a really complex question because, the turning point, it's an accumulation of different situations in life. So how I said to you, 8 years ago, I had my first emotional crisis. I asked for help. I got well again. And then I came to Australia. And for a while, it was really good. I had like a really good 8 or maybe 12 months, living my life. But then the emotional part, it came again. And it came again, and I was getting balance again, asking for help, blah, blah, blah. But I think, the turning point was when I went to study psychotherapy, because it brought me the awareness of what was going on with me and with everyone else, to put you in context, I was in Australia in 2020, COVID times. Everyone was locked down. Esteban had to work. I had a sponsorship in that time. So I wasn't able to choose what to do. So, my boss needed me. I was working in dentistry. So was really, and it's funny now that I remember that time, like really strange to see the streets empty, take the bus, nobody in the bus. Like, it was like a ghost town. And we were receiving people in the clinic, in the practice, in the dental practice, and everyone was really overwhelmed, really stressed. My coworkers, my boss, we were all going through awful times. And that stress went for almost 12 months. And I was so stressed and so, unbalanced that I thought, okay, something's going on. And it's not just me. I can see it. I can feel it in the air. So maybe it's time to know what's going on. And and it's funny because, you asked me, when we met before, who I am. And I think I'm someone really curious. I have a really good friend that he says to me, adults, we lost the curiosity. And I thought, what does it mean? Like, curiosity in what? And then I start to, develop and open my curiosity. So anyways, I went to study psychotherapy, and my mind just blew away. Like, I couldn't believe that nobody told me about this before. Like, and the first thing that you think, why my parents didn't tell me about this, is because they don't know about it. Like, nobody knows about emotional health, mental health, physical health. And I think that was my turning point. I have all the experience, Alice, that has been really profound in my life. But I think just study about it and get more into the mental health area, show me the reality, the reality of the matrix.
Yes. And Esteban, and I'm gonna go straight into the heart of it, because I know we have sort of similar backgrounds in terms of our training and our interests. And what I heard in there as well is you talking about your training and the more intellectual understanding, knowledge approach around the mental and the emotional healing, but you also talking about what you were feeling and experiencing. And so I feel like, I'd like to explore a little bit more. Do you consider yourself to be an integrated practitioner, and how do you bring together how much of what you do is your psychotherapy training versus more your spiritual journey, and how you've aligned to your spiritual self, and are they equal? Is it integrated? Or I'd like to hear a little bit more about how your spiritual journey has played into the work that you do working in trauma and psychotherapy.
Because we are practitioners, maybe, when you treat, when you are with clients, I don't like to call them clients, but we need to call them clients. You synchronize and you get connected. Actually, when I said to you that one of my, I have another big experience in my life that made that turning point. I did a ceremony, a sacred ceremony in an indigenous community in Peru. in 2018, ayahuasca. And that showed me that I come from a indigenous lineage. So my dad's indigenous, my mom is Spanish. That are their background. So I have a mixed blood, but I never really felt white. And I don't wanna offend anyone of a white, background or lineage. It's just it's hard for me to live in the city. It's hard for me have a full-time job because my body doesn't feel it, doesn't feel it right. So responding to your question, I feel like I understand that I live in a material world. So we are in this world where we touch everything and everything has to have a structure and a meaning. But my soul is about understand that everyone is going through a different journey. So your journey is yours, my journey is mine, but we share something in common. So when I bring clients to the therapeutic space, I like to, use my psychotherapist and counselor background to understand the narrative, like what's going on in your mind. Like, tell me what's going on. Oh, this is going on with me and my partner or my family or my work, blah, blah, blah. But at the end, it's how you feel. It's what's going on. How is your body responding to the situations? And then the mind plays the movie. I have another practitioner friend that we call the movie. So the mind creates the movie that's just a movie at the end. It's not real. And if we bring that scenario of body feeling emotions and mind thinking about it, we have something really pure that is the soul inside. And the soul is, for me, is who you really are. What you came to do to this world, And I like to make the difference between, the material world and the indigenous world, because in indigenous communities, like truly indigenous communities, not with any intervention of the modern society, everyone has a role, You have the shaman, that is the spiritual healer. You have the timekeeper. You have the musician, blah, blah, blah. So everyone has a different role. So what I like to, look, I don't want to say what I like to do with my clients, but what I try to inspire my clients is find the inner voice, who you are, and what are you doing here? What you came to do to this world. I feel like I like to believe in community, in community work, in community support. So, for example, we are the healers here. We support people when they are going through different times, But they are musicians, so they make music, so they create certain frequency that makes you feel different emotions, and you have dancers and you have again healers, and so I like to always make understand my clients that we are all different, and we all have something special to share. So yeah.
I love that, Esteban. And I really love that you touched on that element of, who we are in our innermost selves and that soul calling. And I think that I know a conversation that we've had before is talking about, I really feel like we're at almost a consciousness crossroads in the world that we're living in at the moment, in a sense that we see an increase, the age of self-harm and suicide is getting younger, eating disorders, addictions, avoidance strategies, a lot of people suffering and in a lot of pain. And I know this is a big question, but I'm interested to hear from you. Do you feel optimistic that there's this shift in consciousness is moving in the right direction? I guess it depends on where you focus and where, but it's, I guess, maybe the question is, do you feel I mean, in my experience, I'm seeing almost a consciousness crisis of people, as you say, living in this material world, wanting their physical needs met, needing a job, needing security. And there can be sometimes a very difficult tension of the opposites they're holding between, say, like, for example, being a dentist, but being called to do work with people on a soul level. Um,
Yeah.
yeah. What would I mean, do you feel optimistic, or do you feel that there's a shift in consciousness that's happening at scale? What would be your take on that?
Well, my forecast is positive. I'm the positive man. I cannot say, the opposite. But, it's really interesting when you were, asking or, doing the question. I felt shivers, like my skin was getting tingling. Yes, I feel positive. I feel like, and it's funny. I mean, it makes me feel a bit emotional. I feel like, you know, checking my experience in life, the the issue between the wrong and the good, on the bad and the good, the wrong, the correct and correct, has been always been in this world, like since the beginning of the world. We always have this kind of devil and God fighting one each other. And right now I feel like with social media it's more difficult because we have all this dopamine creation in our body through social medias, TikTok. I mean, we have a war now, a couple of wars going on in the world, and we can watch it in television that is awful. I feel like we are normalizing something that is so unnatural for human beings killing each other. That's not natural at all. But at the same time, I believe that in crisis, we have two options. We can continue being victims, or we can be creators of our life. And I feel like, how I said to you from 2020, when we have that massive shutdown of the world, unconsciously, I was able to bring myself to this position. I'm a victim or I'm a creator. And when I say that to you, Alice, I don't want to put anyone that is listening this podcast in that position of, oh, I need to be a creator. Oh, I'm a victim. This Esteban is calling me a victim. Oh, I'm not a victim. I'm just trying to explain how the nervous system and how the mind works in these different situations.
I think you've hit on something so profound there, Esteban, and I really wanted to go into the heart of that. And I would agree with you that when we are faced with crisis, mental health crisis, emotional, whatever the healing or health crisis is, I would agree that we can either go into the victim, we can go into the fear, or we can move towards the light, towards the love, towards the, being creator or victim. And I love how you put that. And I love that we're very conscious of not wanting to, because I don't believe it's an all or nothing, that's such a strong duality. I think that all of us at any given time, I mean, for myself, day to day, I dance with that every moment to moment. I feel like I dance with that. Am I moving towards love and the light, or am I moving towards fear? And am I feeling like this is being done to me, or am I seeing the opportunity to create? So I think you've touched on something beautiful there. And I also want to draw out you talking about this distinction between, what happens in our mind, the movie, the narrative, versus the nervous system, which is so critically important. And I really do feel, my sense is there's a movement, and I want to be part of a movement to working, towards bringing together professionals, networks, people like yourself who understand that there is a nervous system factor that we need, that needs to be considered in these situations. So I love how you touched on that. And I guess that, and, you know, hopefully this isn't too tricky a question, but I'd like to understand a bit more, you know, when you're working with a client or working with someone, do you feel that, you know, do you do the two simultaneously in terms of what's happening on the intellectual level, the movies that people are running, or more a nervous system healer, you know, or healing things on a physiological level from a nervous system point of view? Yeah, I guess it's maybe wanting to explore, understand a little bit more about your process, because I think what you've said there is so key. And I feel that it can be a failing of so many traditional therapies is not addressing the, you know, the basically the programming that's built into our unconscious, that's built into our nervous system. So again, I hope that's not too tricky a question, but I'm interested in terms of how do you how do you sort of normally approach it? What's the angle that you come in on? And you know, not asking you to take us through a whole session, but do you, or yeah, maybe what's yeah, kind of your, yeah, maybe understanding a little bit about the process with the client.
Yes.
And I guess my question is, do you feel that you can go in and address things on a nervous system in the first instance, or is it more tackling the narrative and what's happening, you know, with someone's psyche? Or how do you, maybe just understanding a little bit more around how you approach that for the holistic healing to start to take place?
Yes. Well, look, it's really, I think you're getting the point. You can address one without address the other one, because at the end it's just one person, you know. Personally, I've been having therapy for myself for, I think, maybe the last 3 years, constantly. Like, you know, maybe for 12 sessions with one therapist, and then I have a rest, and then have sessions again for myself, because I'm a therapist and because I'm a human. So I need support. I'm in this journey of growth right now. So how I address my clients is, well, first it's not that we need to do it, but I like to listen to them first. Like, what's going on? Tell me. And you have clients as well, you know, that they come to you and they give you a list of blah, 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 that can go for, I don't know, 30, 40 minutes. Now, you know, not being not compassionate or not being like cold. I understand that that's just a narrative.
Yes.
You know, that's not the reality. It's that is what the client can think about a specific situation. But once we get that, when I understand, okay, this is coming from her partner or his mother or his friend, or once we get that, slowly we are going to the body. Because I don't know if you have, I'm sure you do. Gabo Mate, he says the body store the trauma, and then, you know, trying to explain what is trauma. Trauma is any reaction of the body in an energy way that gets stored and is not able to get processed. So, for example, when you have a car accident, so you are in your car, you see the car, you have the crash, and then the mind disconnects. That's the defense mechanism of the nervous system. The nervous system disconnects you so you can remember, or you can see what happened after, you know, you bleeding, you unconscious, etc. But that situation in the body gets stored in somewhere, in the mind, in the stomach, in the shoulders, in the heart center, lower back. So there are certain points in the body when we have more nerves, and that parts of the body store that energy. So we need to process the energy. Now, you don't need to have a car accident to be traumatized. Trauma can be your mother saying to you that you're not good enough, or your father slapping you because you didn't do the homework, or classmates bullying you. You know, like every situation when we don't feel safe,
Yes.
it's gonna get into a traumatized part of you. So yeah, well, that's the way how I like to go, and I like to call it journey, because it's not like a, at the end it's like a recipe. I don't wanna sound like, oh yeah, I do the same with everyone, but it's like a recipe. Get into the narrative, what's going on, and then we go into the body to find where is the trauma,
Mm.
and you need to reconnect with the trauma. You need to be able to see and hear and feel that part of you that's still traumatized,
Yes.
to finally make peace with that and let it go.
And Esteban, you've hit on something that I think is so key and so important in this. And that and I love how you described it, in very simple, digestible terms, in terms of the trauma being stored as energy, which needs to be released. And I want to come back to that in terms of understanding a bit around, your process around releasing that energy. And I love that you've said that, it's a journey as well. Because and what you said around needing to experience it fully, the experience the trauma, to see it, feel it. And even when I was listening to that and knowing that that's the hard hitting home truth of it, I was going to say, do you find it's a challenge for yourself or even with your clients to get people to go there and experience it? Because I think often with addictions, these avoidance strategies, disassociation, I think that so much of what happens for people, it's certainly been my experience, restrictive eating, whatever the coping mechanism is. I know even with all of my training, I've had periods in my life where it's like it's too terrifying to even go back there and experience that. So I guess and ultimately, I guess that's part of your expertise and what you do, is making it safe for people to go back and experience that, so that they can release the trauma. And I guess that, as I say, I think you've hit on something really important there, because I think we can go to great lengths to avoid that trauma. So maybe I'm just wanting to understand a little bit more around what, again, not talking about the details of a client session per se, but how do you encourage people to touch, to go into that trauma and release it? Or maybe even if you're speaking for yourself, when you have something stored that you need to release it, if someone's listening to this, and they know that they're aware that they maybe, have that trauma in their body, what are some of the techniques or strategies or things that you have found helpful in terms of being able to tap into the trauma and then release that energy?
Well, I was going to talk about a client, but then you said maybe talk about yourself to not, share anything. So I think, yeah, that's a good point. Well, I can't remember if it was. No, look, I'm not sure if it was Marianne Williamson or another person that she said, we are emotional beings that sometimes we think. And the problem with this modern society is that we use too much of the brain. So we're constantly thinking and overthinking. And sometimes that overthinking, that overuse of the brain comes from trauma, because you don't feel safe. So you need to find a way how to make yourself and your future safer. So you start to think and overthink about, and you can't stop the loop. You asked me about if it's challenging for me. I feel like at the beginning it was challenging. I remember one of my first clients, I don't want to reveal the gender, he or she, was really not avoidant, but that person was really into the mind. And that person said to me, I like to think about things. I like to think about the future. I like to. So that person was always thinking. but not feeling. And was a bit frustrating. Like I didn't understand, because I had other clients that they were really aware of their emotions, but like over aware of what's going on with them. Like, oh yeah, I feel this, I feel that, I'm anxious, blah blah blah. But they weren't able to call themselves. Versus this client that was really into the mind, just always thinking about things. And it was frustrating at the beginning, then was challenging, and then I would worry because I thought this person is not feeling anything, so maybe I'm doing something wrong. And then I realized that that was the way how this person copied with the trauma, just getting into the inner world and not feeling anything. So the trauma was so big. I mean, his or her story was really big. So this person literally had to disconnect from the emotions.
Yes.
And slowly, after, I can't remember, maybe 3 or 4 sessions, I can see this person crying. And it sounds really bad, like, because I was like, oh yes, this person is crying, but not because I wanted to make this person cry. It's because finally this person is reconnecting with the body. Because and it's similar to what happened to me. I remember when I was 20 years old, I was always thinking, I'm not happy. When I'm gonna be happy? What's going on with me? Always, like, I remember writing diaries, and actually, till maybe a couple of years ago, I still have my diaries. I don't know what's going on. I cannot be happy. I don't know what's going on. I cannot be happy. And maybe, last year or this year, I thought, that's the answer. I don't know why I'm not happy. Not because I'm not happy, because my body is telling me something, but the mind is just trying to create a narrative of something.
Yes.
Because actually, it's not that I'm not happy. Maybe I'm just tired. Maybe I didn't sleep well. Maybe I have gut issues. Maybe I'm stressed because of work or my visa or lifestyle. So yeah, it's not easy to reconnect with your body or to listen to your body in this world.
Yes.
Because that is how the modern society teaches us to be. Go to uni and study, and then do a specialization and continue studying, because you need to have a status and blah 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 blah. But at the end, it's like, what is the name of this book? The Alchemist. It's everything inside. You can go around the world, but if you don't find peace and happiness and balance inside you, you're never gonna find it with a new iPhone or a new car or material things. Yeah, but responding to the very first question, it takes time. It takes time to reconnect with yourself, because it's painful. The emotional pain is physical pain, and people get scared about it, and they don't want to do it.
Well, Esteban, I love, and again, there's so much gold in what you said there. That resonates deeply for me, because I'm speaking as someone who's, been on a multi-dimensional journey with various trainings and spiritual practices and working with monks and modern masters, etc. And I still, as you know, and I'm very transparent with my audience around this, 6 months ago, had hit another block. Because, like, even for myself, I know that one of my coping mechanisms of choice is to intellectualize things and to rationalize things, right? When the pain gets too much, I retreat into my head, and I'm like, well, I'll write about it, I'll describe it, I'll intellectualize it. And I think that the other, I think that's a really, really important point that you've made there. And I think that's something that other people can relate to. And I also think that you've just touched on a golden nugget of wisdom there that's important to draw out, which is in line with The Alchemist, one of my favorite books. You are so right that we're living in this world, which is, constantly, bidding for our attention, into the new iPhone and the clothes and the shiny show reels on social media. But ultimately, those externals, if we're not aligned and feeling comfortable and at peace within ourselves, it's never going to fill us. It's there's always going to be that void. So I guess I would say for someone, and I feel like, wow, even after decades of all this work and stuff, to still find myself in a place where it's like, wow, I need to bring myself back into my body. I want to ask you about that specifically. So maybe, someone like myself that may be aware of these different modalities and therapies, what would you say to somebody listening, that's maybe experiencing that they're aware that there's things happening in their body, they tend to retreat in their head, what are maybe some of the tools that you use to help to reconnect with your body, to help reconnect with yourself? What counsel would you give people that are maybe aware that, well, hang on a second, I'm very avoidant here? What are some of the things that you might do or you might suggest to others to help them reconnect to their body and where they're at and what they're feeling?
Ooh, that's a juicy one. I was trying to think about my answer. I feel like a therapist said to me, and well, first, I want to clarify something that I said in my other answer is people is not that they want to look out for help. It just doesn't feel safe because it's something that is not, it's new for you. So it's not where you used to be in this traumatized world, traumatized culture. So ask for help is something new that it gets scary. So I want to clarify that it's not that we're not looking for help because we don't want, it's just because it's scary for the body.
Yes.
What I can say to someone that is trying to find this path or is not really aware of this path, I think sometimes we lie to ourselves a lot, and we are not living our inner truth. And I feel like when we get in that point of, I don't know what's going on with me, or everyone hates me, or I don't like this, when we get in that narrative of negativity, maybe just take 1 second to see what you have around you. I feel like, the Positive Man, that is my website and my project, is about try to find positivity in everything, in a rainy day, in loneliness, in difficulties in life, difficulties with your partner, with your work situation, with my visa situation. I think, how I said to you, if we talk about the psychological part, not the emotional stuff, the psychological, we can have two options. Or you get in the victim position,
yes,
and you get stuck there, or you are a creator of your life. Now, it's really important to clarify that I would say 100% of the population of the world, we've been victims in the past. Victims of our parents, or the culture, or the school situation, religion, etc., etc. Everyone was a victim in the past. But what I can say to someone that is going through things right now, whatever is going on in your life, you have an option. Because adults, and that's the difference between children and adults, that adults, we have options, always.
Yes.
If I said to you, Alice, you have the option of blah, 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 and you said to me, no, Esteban, actually, that person that is saying no is not an adult. That's a child. And that's the inner Alice saying, And again, I don't want to sound, and please, because of my vocabulary, correct me if I'm wrong. It's not excuses. It's just a way of self-sabotage yourself.
Mm.
I don't have the tools. I don't have the money. I don't have the time. Yeah, you have it. Actually, you have it. We have so much. As an immigrant, I learned to live my life thriving and using all the resources that I could. For the last 3 years, I tell to my friends, I've been having therapy for free. So I go to gay institutes in the city. Hey, do you have some therapy for a gay person that needs help? It's not true, because I don't have any issues with my sexuality. It's just I just want to continue growing and receive help. So we have so many options to get help to continue growing, but sometimes it's the inner. And in the last time, Alice, I've been thinking about the inner child. How hurt is your inner child? Have you seen a kid, for example, in the street or in the supermarket, always the supermarket, the mother or the father with the kid, and again, and I want that candy or that sweet, and the parents say no, 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 and then start to cry, and you can touch that kid. So that kid is so distressed because the father or the mother is not feeling his or her needs, that the body gets in a state of distress, like alert, alarm, danger, fear, like all gets mixed, that you can touch that kid. Like you literally, you need to leave that kid for a couple of minutes, like to self-regulate. Like, okay.
Yes.
Adults is the same. It's exactly the same. And I've been thinking about, for the last maybe 3 or 4 weeks, like, wow, I didn't realize that we are kids in old bodies.
I honestly think again, there's so much gold in what you've said there, and there's some things that I want to touch on. One, what I'm really hearing is how powerful that curiosity and that observing what's going on around us, how powerful that is. And Dr. Garba Mate, who I think we're going to see together, big fan of him. And he, and one of the reasons I love Alice in Wonderland as a story, right, as well, is it's all about being curious and curiouser. So I love that you talked about that curiosity and talking about stepping back with, to just look around what's happening in our world with that curiosity. And I also love that you touched on, and I'm a big believer in this as well, that we always have options. We always have options. And you bringing that example and being so direct and honest about that, the child state versus the functional adult state, I think is incredibly powerful. Because when I think about, I know for myself, I can be having a great day and feeling empowered, and I can get triggered, and I'm in my wounded child. And as soon as I go into wounded child, I'm suddenly disempowered. And it's not until I step out of that and go, okay, hang on a second. I'm not a child not getting the candy in the grocery store. I don't want to stay in that space. I want to be my functional adult, or whatever you call it. I want to be my observant self, and be curious about this and go, okay, so what set me off? And that step further of what are the options? What are the options? And I really love that you've talked about that, that victim versus creator. I think that's some really beautiful language. And personally, I'm going to be taking that away with me today. I really love that, to be thinking about when I get triggered, get activated, set off in a situation, to think about, okay, am I feeling like, am I feeling, am I in fear? Am I in victim mode, or am I considering how this might be activating my growth? Where's the opportunity for change? Where's the opportunity for expansion out of this?
Definitely. I mean, you get really, really well in the point of, because you have, how we say, we have options, and you have the options to have problems in your life. You can have challenges in your life, or you can have opportunities to learn your life.
Yes.
And the three are the same situation.
Mm.
It is how you see life.
Yes.
What can bring you to a better future, or maybe to a better present. We don't need to think in
Oh,
next year or next month or next week. Just today. It's, I don't know, it's 11 a.m. now. If we're having a rough morning, wash your face and go for a walk under the rain. It's really interesting. Maybe 2 or 3 weekends ago, we've been having like a rough, well, it's winter. That's the truth. It's
yes.
winter, it's gray and rains, and it's cold.
Mm-hmm.
Last year, I was in the northern rivers living in winter. When winter started, I was in the northern rivers, and then I went to visit my family in July. So my winter was a bit not stable. I was moving around, so I didn't really realize how cold was it. I was just wearing, jackets and all my gear, but I didn't realize the winter didn't affect me like this year. This year I have a full-time job, waking up early every day, blah, blah, blah. And I felt like my emotional state started to went down slowly.
Mm.
I was doing yoga and Pilates every day at 6 a.m. I started in April, was a really good routine, Monday to Friday. And then we're in July, maybe at the beginning of June, my body couldn't wake up early anymore. I couldn't make it. So I started to lose my practices slowly. Work was getting really heavy. And I started to suffer that, like, wow, I'm not really happy now. Something is going on. Like, it's hard to be happy.
Mm.
And one Saturday, I was literally all day at home. Well, it was raining, so I didn't go out. Not feeling really well. I'm not someone. I like my place, but I be in nature. I live, 2 blocks from the beach. I like to go for a walk, sit under the sun, read a book, blah blah blah. But that Saturday was really interesting because I was really kind of depressed. And the next day, I thought, you know what? Enough. One day was enough. Now I need to
Mm-hmm.
do something for myself. And
Yes.
I went for a walk here in DY Beach, and we have a walk Kirkle to DY. And I was walking under a gray sky full of clouds, kind of drizzling. It wasn't raining, but I could see the beauty of
Mm.
that day. And reminds me, feel sadness, reminds me the good things that I have in life.
Yes. And
And
Esteban,
yeah,
yeah.
sorry.
Oh no, what I was loving is such an important, really, eternal, truth and principle to living a more peaceful life is you talking about that. It's not so much the event or what's happening. It's how we're seeing it, and
Yeah,
can we see the beauty, as you say?
yeah,
Can
in
we see
everything.
in the pain, in the gray days, in the rain, in the whatever it is that isn't working? I think that's so important what you've touched on there, because it really, so much of our day, our moment to moment experience is not the event, not what's happened. It's,
Yeah,
are we saying yes to it? Are
yeah.
we allowing it? Are we choosing to see beauty in it?
Everything I started, well, how I said to you, because I call my project the Positive Man.
Mm.
Uh, when I was living my truth, when I was in my 20s, I was really negative. And it's funny because people, my current friends in Australia, they can't believe how negative I was in Chile. They said, "Oh, you're always so." Someone said to me the other day, "I have a good aura." I'm like, "Oh, your aura is really like positive, and you're so chill, and blah blah blah." And I tell them, "Well, if you met me 15 years ago, I wasn't this person." Oh no, I can't believe that. No, believe me, I was awful. An awful. son, awful sibling, awful friend, awful partner, awful worker, always whinging and complaining and stressed and anxious. So I have to take that and turn it and flip it. So I thought, okay, I was the negative man. Now I'm the positive man. But I remember one of my yoga teachers, she said to me once, you can have fun in a bad day.
Mm. Mm.
And I thought, and I was going into a yoga class, but before I went to the toilet, so I said, I'm going to go to the toilet and then I'm going to enter in the studio. And I thought, what does she mean? Like, how am I going to have fun in a bad day? And then I get it. You know, that's the importance of understand that we're emotional beings.
Yes.
Because we are not going to be happy all the time. But not because you feel sad, because you have an issue with your friend, or you're grieving someone of something. That's mean that you're going to make yourself miserable.
Yes.
You don't need to, if you're going through rough times, don't punch yourself on the ground. Be gentle with yourself. Have something nice. Eat good food, nourishing food. Watch something that fills your soul and your heart, something that you really like. Meet your friends, ask for help. Your family, if you have a good relation with your family. But again, we have options here.
Yes.
And this is the time, because we were talking about how hopeful I feel about this world. This is the time where we need to grow up and take care of the inner child, because
Yes.
we can't continue being the child in tantrum mode.
Yes.
It's enough. We have so many leaders destroying the world and others' lives. I don't want to call them, I don't want to make a call, but it's time to grow up. If you
Mm.
have, if you never were seen when you were a kid, if you have leadership issues, if you have narcissist issues, if you have me issues, go and talk with someone else. But it's enough to destroy ourselves and others, because it's just your inner child crying out inside. Well, after saying this, I still feel really hopeful for this world. I feel like we have a pure heart. We all have all the emotions. You have the same emotions that I have, and Anne has the same emotions that I have. But in balance, we need to have the happiness with the joy, with the sadness, with the anxiety, with the anger. All is in balance in my heart. So when I get in balance, what I can do to come back to my balanced state. Yeah.
Esteban, you again, and we're going to need to wrap up very shortly, and I want to allow time to talk to make sure
Why?
people know how to get the
I'm having fun with you,
Oh,
Alice.
it's I know the timings, but
Yeah.
there's really, really beautiful and profound things you said in there. I love that you're speaking in terms of this, that it's time to grow up, and how we find balance and how we look after the inner child, because there's so much love and compassion in what you've shared there. And I think that's so important for us to remember, particularly those of us going through, when we're going through traumatizing or emotionally painful periods, or life is difficult, it's painful, it's challenging. And I love how much love and compassion you bring to that, because you're not coming from a place of judgment. It's not about being bad or good. It's about, as you said, it's actually about taking responsibility, right? And being accountable, and remembering that as adults, we have an option in terms of how we want to respond. I also feel that it's very loving and compassionate what you've said about balance and imbalance. That's resonated with me at depth, because I know that that's often one of the key things. It's still a life lesson that I'm working on. How much of it how often I get destabilized or deregulated because I'm out of balance. Because I tend to be, I'll call it, I tend to be quite compulsive in how I approach things. I get excited. I want to do everything. But if I get out of balance,
Yeah.
I get deregulated. And generally
Yes.
what I find is if I pull back from it, it's like, what's going on here? I'm driving myself too hard. And why am I driving myself too hard? Generally because I feel like I need to be, do, or have more. Right.
Yes.
So it's really about having that compassion, bringing it back into balance. And the other thing that I want to touch on that's so gorgeous about what you said is the importance of being gentle with ourselves where we're in pain. And Esteban, I thank you for sharing that because I needed that reminder. I think people listening may need that reminder possibly as well, because that's I still have a default that if I'm feeling bad, it's like, right, what sort of rigor do I need to bring to my routine to snap
Yes.
myself out of it? And what you said is so beautiful and so important to remember that when we're in pain or we feel out of balance, yes, we, choose what is going to be that next loving self-care step that we can take to be kind to ourselves if we're going through a period of emotional pain. I think that's a really beautiful message.
Alice, I know that we are on the time, but before I forget it, I went to a retreat once, and the shaman, the facilitator, he says he has a daughter, and he says sometimes I get really upset with my daughter because she was in that time like 4 or 5 years old, so she was really all over the shop.
Mm-hmm.
But he says for us that we are parents, that unconditional love that we have for our children is the same love that we need to have for ourselves. Now, for people like us that we don't have kids, try to remember yourself. I've been doing this exercise in the last time, trying to remember how was that little Esteban. That's the way how I pronounce my name, Esteban, in Spanish.
Yeah. Yes.
And it's really funny because I get confused between Esteban and Esteban. Like now I'm losing a bit my identity, but yeah, how was that little Esteban that he was always happy and always doing silly things and jumping around. I was a really creative, happy kid that because X or X, he got really sad and then he was a sad, grumpy adult. That that part of me is still inside me. It's there. I just need to listen to that kid that is crying out inside. And yeah, and I feel like, you know, all that I've been saying to you right now is part of my journey. I learned this through in yoga. We say is that we need to self-study ourselves every day.
Yes.
So that's a big part of our journey. Again, have a career, have a successful job. Yeah, it's important. We need to pay bills. We live in this modern society. We need to make peace with that. We can't go against the system because it's like fight against the ocean. We're never gonna win.
Mm.
But at the same time, we need to try to be more natural and listen to ourselves. What I really want to do, and something really important. I was talking with Pete, with my friend. We were talking about the only person that limits you to do something is yourself.
Amen.
Nobody else. Mom and dad, they are not playing any role in this game anymore. It's just you. It's not your
Yes.
boss. It's not your partner. It's not your friend. It's just you being in alert or scared or fear mode, and then say, no, I cannot do this. I'm not really smart, or I'm not really athletic, or I'm not really tall. I'm not. No, it's just you coming from a place of fear from your background, putting that on the game that is here and now. So please don't limit yourselves to do anything. And if you need some help to realize that, or to bring the best of you, ask for help.
Yes.
Tell to yourself it's safe to ask for help, and you can do it. So
Oh, so Esteban and Esteban, there's so many beautiful messages, and that it really touched me today, because that reminder, I love that message about that unconditional love we need to have for our little selves. And I think for people like myself, and I speak quite openly about this, as my audiences knows, if you've come from a highly traumatized background, a violent background. I remember you mentioned Marianne Williamson and reading in A Return to Love. And I remember reading and it hitting me between the eyes that, there's the original source of the abuse or the trauma, but nothing is as impactful or devastating and traumatic as the abuse we continue to play over in our mind to ourselves.
yeah,
So
yeah,
I think that's so important for people to remember. And I'm one of these people. I'll call it out right here and now. I'm still on a journey of learning how to be unconditionally loving, with my
yeah,
little self. And as you say, to listen to that, our intuitive self, and listen to what that little person, what that little person needs. And honestly, I think it's a very powerful and beautiful and impactful message that you've shared today, Esteban. So thank you so much. Thank you. And I'm also and also I love that so if people want to get in touch with you and they're interested in working with you, what's the best way to, we'll share the links, of course, in the podcast. What's the best way to make contact with you?
Well, my best way to contact me is through my website,
Okay.
thepositiveman.com.
Yes, easy.
There you can find my Instagram. I'm gonna be honest with everyone. I'm not really good with social medias. It makes my anxiety higher. I feel like
Two.
that's part of my natural. I made peace with it. I know that I need to be in the medias, to show my journey and my work. But yeah, thepositiveman.com. My Instagram is thepositiveman_444. I think my phone number is there as well. If they're gonna message me, I don't have any issues. I'm usually I have I work trading hours Monday to Friday, so I cannot respond you. I can respond you after hours or during my weekends. And yeah, and something that I want to say to you before we finish is that I think it's important. I like to tell to my clients is some emotions in your body doesn't feel really good, like anger or sadness. It's painful. When you feel
Mm,
happy, your body's light and you feel
mm,
full of energy and you wake up and you see the sun. It's like, oh my God, I feel amazing, so good.
mhm.
When you're sad or when you're angry, you don't feel really well. They're not bad enough. I don't believe in bad emotions. I don't know if you watch the movie Inside Out.
Yes, love it.
Man, every adult should watch this movie because it's a emotions for dummies. You can understand it really easy.
It's a great suggestion. Yeah,
Yeah,
Inside Out. It is. It's a yeah.
but remember, when you get angry, when you get sad, your body gets inflamed inside. It's
Mm,
inflammation, cortisol, alarm, stress. So I don't know if it happens to you. When I feel angry, I feel sick actually. Like my stomach's
yes.
like I wanna, it's not good. But
Mm,
saying that, I've been finding that when we get in that point of anger, of frustration, of sadness with something of someone, it's hard to accept that the person that is feeling that is yourself because it's part of the ego. Like, oh yeah, no, I didn't make a mistake. That person made a mistake. I'm saying this for, I don't want to extend this, but I'm saying this for what? Because remember that the emotional part of you that is feeling that is that inner child.
mm.
So be gentle with that child. If that child is frustrated, if that child is angry or is crying because of something, please listen to that inner child and take care of that person for a while. 30 minutes, an hour, and I promise you that you're gonna be feel better really soon.
Oh, Esteban and Esteban, that is beautiful. That is absolutely beautiful. And I think that is a wonderful note to finish on, about really honoring and respecting and listening to that little part of us. And as you said, it's a big ask. It's a big ask, and it, you know, to own that hard-hitting home truth that really we are the ones that are creating either the opportunity or the beauty and the suffering. I mean, that's a big responsibility for us to own, but that really is the spiritual truth of our existence, right?
We need to do it for ourselves and for the world. We need to be responsible of share what we came to share to this world.
Yes.
So I think it's part of my goals of 2024. I said I really want to heal. I'm sick of not sleeping well and my emotional things, blah blah blah. But then I thought, you know what? It's time to grow up as well. And that doesn't mean that I'm gonna get married and I'm gonna have babies. That means that I'm gonna be responsible for myself emotionally, physically, and mentally, and spiritually. So
Esteban, that is gold. That is gold. I love that. And also one thing that I want to highlight too is in addition to that beautiful message of looking after that being gentle, being deeply gentle with ourselves, looking after that little part of us, paying attention to and aligning to our intuition. I love how you said to make a better present, not just a better future. Like, yes, we're creating a better future, but that, my friend, is so important for us to remember, creating a better present. So coming back to how can we create a better present right here, right now, no matter what's going on.
Just do it.
I love it. Just do it.
It's funny because I can't remember who was, but someone said to me, you know what I said? Just fucking do it, mate. And it got so into my mind that every time that now I want to do something, but I get scared or in fear more, it's like, you know what? Just fucking do it. That's the one. but talking about be gentle and compassionate is just encourage yourself to do it now.
I love that.
Yeah.
Oh, Esteban, what a power chat today. Beautiful conversation. I know that every time I speak to you, every time we connect, I experience healing and change and transformation. I can say that from my heart to yours. I'm deeply grateful for that. And I know that you will have helped people that listen to our talk today. You have very powerful healing and teaching abilities. And I'm exceptionally grateful that you joined us on Wonderland today to share your gifts. So we will share all the links so that people can get in touch with you. And once again, from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom, your experience, and your honesty, and sharing the real you and the little you and the adult you with all of us today. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, thank you, Anne, as well. Well, we will see what's going on now for us.
Yes, that's right. That's right. And
for the next present.
Yes, absolutely. For the next present. Yes.
That's it.
I love that. Okay.